I'm Sarah Mitchell, 30 years old, and just 10 days after marrying Ethan, my life took a turn I never saw coming. My mother-in-law, Olivia, knocked on my door, her designer purse swinging, a lawyer trailing behind her with a leather briefcase. "Sarah, darling," she said, her voice honey-sweet, "these documents will secure your place in our family." But I saw through the charm. Those papers weren't about security. They were a bold attempt to claim the $3 million legacy my grandmother left me. A legacy I'd kept hidden from everyone, even Ethan. And let me tell you, that secret was the shield that saved my future. Before I dive into how Olivia's plan unraveled, let's connect. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? And if you've ever had to protect something rightfully yours, hit that subscribe button. Your story could light the way for someone else. Now let's rewind to the moment that set this drama in motion. My grandmother Margaret wasn't just family, she was my hero. Born in 1940, she faced a world that expected women to stay in the shadows. But Margaret, she carved her own path. She'd sit me down with a mug of coffee and her famous oatmeal cookies saying, "Sarah, your freedom lies in your financial independence." I didn't know then that she was quietly building a fortune, 3 properties worth $3 million. A penthouse in downtown San Francisco valued at $1.5 million with skyline views that take your breath away. A Monterey beachfront villa worth $1 million where waves crash against the shore, and an Oakland rental apartment generating steady income priced at $500,000. When she passed 2 years ago, I was devastated. But at the reading of her will, I was floored. Me, a landlord, I'd pictured inheriting her recipe box, not a real estate empire. So why hide it? It wasn't about deceit, it was survival. I'd learned the hard way that money changes people. My college ex, Mark, once borrowed $10,000 from my savings for a surefire startup, only to ghost me when it failed. Another boyfriend nudged me to cover rent because I earned more. Those betrayals left scars. Even with Ethan, whose love for old jazz records and late-night talks stole my heart, I hesitated. Was I wrong to guard my secret, or was it the wisest choice I'd ever made? According to Forbes, 60% of women lose control of their assets after marriage due to weak legal protections. That statistic haunted me as I tucked the property deeds away. Here's a real-life example to drive it home. My friend Jenny inherited a small house from her aunt. She shared the news with her fiancé, who seemed supportive until his parents pressured her to sell it to fund their family business. Jenny signed the papers, trusting love would prevail. A year later, the business tanked and so did her engagement. She was left with nothing. That story stuck with me, whispering caution when Olivia's lawyer slid those documents across my table. The small lesson here: love is beautiful, but it's not a financial plan. Protect your assets with legal safeguards before sharing them, even with those closest to you. Margaret's voice echoed in my mind that day. Never let anyone control your destiny. But as Olivia's eyes locked on mine, I realized she knew more about my grandmother's legacy than I'd ever shared. How and what was she really after? Stick with me, because next I'll take you back to Margaret's incredible journey, how a young widow built a $3 million empire, and the lessons she passed down that prepared me for this fight. Let me take you back to a small San Francisco apartment in 1965, where my grandmother Margaret sat at her kitchen table, a single mother staring at a modest insurance check. At 25, she was a widow, her husband gone in a sudden accident, leaving her with a toddler, my mom, in a world of uncertainty. Society expected her to remarry, to lean on someone else. But Margaret, she had fire in her soul. Sarah, she'd tell me years later, her eyes twinkling over a plate of her famous oatmeal cookies, freedom starts when you take control of your own path. That's exactly what she did, building a $3 million real estate empire from scratch. And the lessons she passed down, they armed me for the battle I'd face with my mother-in-law, Olivia. Margaret's story is one of grit and vision. With no formal education, she took a job as a typist at a real estate firm, earning $2 an hour. But she wasn't just typing, she was learning. She soaked up every conversation about market trends, zoning laws, and property values. At night, she pored over library books on investing, her baby asleep in the next room. By 1970, when San Francisco's market dipped during an economic slump, she saw opportunity where others saw risk. With her $15,000 insurance payout, she bought a rundown Oakland apartment for a steal. That property, now worth $500,000, was her first win. Over the decades, she added a Monterey beachfront villa valued at $1 million and a San Francisco penthouse priced at $1.5 million. Together, these properties generated $8,000 a month in rental income by the time I inherited them. According to Zillow, U.S. real estate values grew 5% annually since 1970. Margaret rode that wave with patience and smarts. Here's a real-life example to show you her genius. In 1982, a colleague urged her to sell her Oakland property during a market dip, warning prices would crash. Margaret refused, trusting her research on urban growth. 10 years later, that apartment's value tripled as the area gentrified. Compare that to my friend Tom, who panic sold his condo in 2008's recession, losing $100,000. Margaret's strategy: buy low, hold long, outshone fear-driven decisions. She wasn't just investing in properties, she was investing in knowledge. She attended free community workshops, networked with brokers, even took a $50 course on property management. Her mantra: education is your greatest asset. I didn't grasp the scale of her success until she passed 2 years ago. We'd spent Sundays baking, laughing, watching the bay's fog roll in from her balcony. She never flaunted her wealth, living modestly in that Oakland apartment. When her lawyer handed me the deeds to 3 properties, I was speechless. Me, a landlord, I'd imagined inheriting her cookie recipe, not a portfolio generating millions. But Margaret's real gift was her wisdom. Money buys options, Sarah, but knowledge buys freedom. That lesson became my anchor when Olivia's lawyer appeared, documents in hand. The small lesson here: investing isn't about luck, it's about learning. Start small, study the market, and don't let fear dictate your choices. Margaret's $15,000 bet grew into millions because she trusted her education over emotion. You can do the same whether it's real estate or a side hustle. But here's where it gets complicated. When I inherited Margaret's empire, I made a choice that would test my marriage. I kept it a secret from Ethan. Was it caution, or was I setting us up for disaster? That decision, born from Margaret's lessons, led to a moment that nearly broke us. Let's dive into why I hid the truth and the price I almost paid. Let's step into my San Francisco apartment, twinkle lights still strung from our wedding, where I, Sarah Mitchell, faced a heart-wrenching dilemma. At 30, I'd inherited a $3 million real estate empire from my grandmother Margaret, 3 properties that changed my life overnight. But I made a choice that kept me awake, staring at the ceiling as Ethan slept beside me. I didn't tell him. Not about the penthouse, the beachfront villa, or the Oakland rental generating $8,000 a month. Why hide something so big from the man I loved? It wasn't about mistrust, it was about protection shaped by scars from my past. But as my mother-in-law Olivia started circling, that secret became both my shield and my burden. Was I saving my future or risking my marriage? Let me explain. I wasn't always cautious. In my 20s, I was open with my finances, too open. My ex, Mark Sweet, talked me into lending $10,000 from my savings for his startup. When it crashed, he vanished, leaving me to eat ramen for months. Another ex, Chris, started expecting me to cover dinners and trips once he learned I earned more. Those betrayals taught me a hard truth: money can twist even the kindest hearts. So when I met Ethan, his warm smile and love for jazz melting my defenses, I hesitated. I told him about Margaret's Oakland apartment where we lived, but not the full scope of her legacy. According to a 2023 Pew study, 45% of couples clash over financial secrets, and I feared becoming a statistic. Yet I couldn't shake Margaret's voice. Your independence is your power, Sarah. Keeping the secret wasn't easy. Picture me heart-pounding when Ethan spotted an email from my property manager about a tenant issue. "What's this about a rental?" he asked, brow raised. I mumbled, "Oh, just some maintenance for Grandma's old place," and changed the subject. The lie stung, but I justified it. I funneled the rental income into a separate account, handled repairs through a management company, and kept paperwork locked away. Each step felt like a betrayal, yet also a necessity. I'd lie awake wondering, was I building a wall between us? Or was I safeguarding what Margaret worked so hard to give me? Here's a real-life example to show the stakes. My friend Lisa, a nurse, inherited $50,000 from her dad. She hid it from her husband, fearing he'd pressure her to spend it on his car obsession. When he found out a year later, the betrayal cut deep. They tried therapy, but the trust was gone, and they divorced. Lisa's story haunted me. Unlike her, I planned to tell Ethan eventually. I wanted to wait until our marriage felt rock solid, until I knew his family's values wouldn't swallow mine. But that plan was tested sooner than I expected. The small lesson here: secrets can protect, but they're a short-term fix. If you're hiding assets, get legal safeguards like a prenup or trust first. They give you breathing room to build trust without risking everything. Margaret's legacy wasn't just properties, it was the wisdom to prioritize my security. But my caution wasn't enough to prepare me for Olivia. Ethan's mother wasn't just curious, she was relentless, her questions at family dinners probing deeper each time. "What did Margaret leave you, Sarah?" "Just that little apartment," she'd ask, her smile sharp. I dodged, but her persistence set off alarms. Was she guessing, or did she know more than she let on? The answer would hit me like a freight train, threatening everything I'd fought to protect. Let's dive into the moment Olivia's true intentions surfaced and how they nearly tore my new marriage apart. Picture a candlelit dinner at a sprawling Marin County estate, crystal glasses clinking the air thick with unspoken expectations. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 30, newly married to Ethan, and sitting across from his mother, Olivia, whose warm smile hides a razor-sharp agenda. I'd inherited a $3 million real estate empire from my grandmother, Margaret, but kept it secret even from Ethan. That choice felt like a lifeline as I navigated the Harris family, a clan of wealth and control where Olivia ruled the financial roost. Her probing questions about my finances weren't just curiosity, they were a campaign to pull my legacy into the Harris family trust. And as her pressure mounted, I realized I wasn't just protecting my assets. I was fighting for my place in this family. The Harrises were old money, their fortune tied to a tech consulting firm Ethan's father, Robert, had built. But Olivia, with her charity galas and Chanel suits, held the reins. She viewed marriage as a merger, not a partnership. At that dinner, her questions came like velvet-wrapped darts. "Sarah, what did Margaret leave you?" "Just that quaint Oakland apartment," she asked, her eyes narrowing over her wine glass. I deflected, mentioning only sentimental trinkets, but her skepticism was palpable. Ethan's sister Claire sat quietly, her own story a warning. She'd married a chef, Tom, whose small restaurant was absorbed into the Harris Trust. Now Tom worked under Olivia's thumb, his dreams sidelined. According to a 2023 CNBC report, 40% of family businesses use financial control to dictate personal decisions. Olivia was a master at it. Olivia's tactics were relentless. She'd drop by our apartment with gifts, a cashmere throw, a vase, each paired with a dig. "This place could use more sophistication, dear," she'd say, then pivot to my job. "Publishing is so unstable. Have you considered joining the family firm?" Her real aim surfaced at a family barbecue when she cornered me by the pool. "The Harris Trust protects our legacy," she said, voice low. "All family assets belong in it for security." I nodded politely, my stomach churning. She wasn't asking about my finances, she was hunting for leverage to claim them. Here's a real-life example to show the stakes. My colleague Rachel married into a wealthy family who pressured her to transfer her startup shares into their trust. She complied, thinking it was unity. 2 years later, her in-laws sold the shares to fund a failing venture, leaving her with nothing. Rachel's story echoed Claire's, whose restaurant now served Olivia's vision, not Tom's. Both women lost control because they saw family pressure as love, not strategy. I wasn't naive. Margaret had taught me to guard my independence, but Olivia's persistence made me question everything. Was I overreacting, or was her charm a trap? The small lesson here: family pressure can feel like care, but it's often control in disguise. If someone pushes you to merge finances without clear terms, pause and assess their motives. A trust should empower you, not strip your autonomy. Margaret's words rang in my ears. Your power lies in your choices, Sarah. But Olivia wasn't just probing, she was planning. Her questions grew sharper, her visits more frequent. Then one afternoon she crossed a line that turned my suspicion into fear. What she did next wasn't just bold, it was a calculated strike that threatened everything I'd fought to protect. How far was she willing to go to claim my $3 million legacy, and would Ethan stand by me when the truth came out? Let's dive into the moment. Olivia's true intentions exploded into the open, shaking my marriage to its core. Imagine a quiet Tuesday afternoon in my San Francisco apartment, the hum of the city outside, a half-finished coffee on the counter. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 30, guarding a $3 million real estate legacy from my grandmother Margaret, a secret I'd kept even from my new husband Ethan. My mother-in-law Olivia had been circling her questions about my finances growing sharper. But nothing prepared me for the moment my doorbell rang, and there she stood, flawless in her cream blazer, a lawyer beside her, his briefcase gleaming. "Sarah, dear," Olivia said, her smile practiced, "we need to talk about your future with the Harris family." In her hands were documents that could strip away my inheritance. That moment wasn't just a test, it was a wake-up call that shook my marriage to its core. Olivia's plan was bold. She ushered the lawyer, Mr. Daniels, inside, ignoring my stammered excuse about a work call. "This won't take long," she insisted, setting the papers on my coffee table. The documents proposed transferring my properties, Margaret's penthouse Monterey Villa and Oakland rental, worth $3 million into the Harris Family Trust. Olivia framed it as protection, claiming it would save on taxes and secure our legacy. But the fine print told a different story. The trust named Olivia and Robert as primary trustees, giving them control over my assets. My heart pounded as I realized she'd investigated Margaret's estate, knowing every property's value. According to a 2024 LegalZoom survey, 65% of family trusts are used to centralize control, not protect. Olivia was playing a textbook move. Her audacity stunned me. "Ethan's out of town," I said, stalling. "Shouldn't he be here?" Olivia waved a hand. "He trusts me to handle family matters." But I didn't. I grabbed my phone and FaceTimed Ethan, his confused face appearing from a Chicago hotel. "Your mom's here with a lawyer," I said, voice steady despite my nerves. "She wants me to sign over my inheritance." Olivia's composure slipped as Ethan's voice sharpened. "What inheritance, Sarah? Mom, what's going on?" I took a breath and confessed. "My grandmother left me 3 properties worth $3 million. I kept it private to protect them." The silence was deafening. Olivia jumped in. "Ethan, dear, I'm ensuring these assets are managed properly." But Ethan's shock was clear. "Mom, you did this behind my back." Here's a real-life example to show the stakes. A Reddit user, JaneDoe88, shared how her in-laws tricked her into signing a trust document claiming it was for family unity. She lost her $200,000 inheritance when they sold her land to cover business debts. Jane's story mirrored mine. Olivia's trust wasn't about security, it was about power. Later, I learned the Harris firm was drowning in $800,000 of debt from Robert's failed investments. My properties were their lifeline, and Olivia saw me as the key. The small lesson here: never sign legal documents under pressure. Always consult your own lawyer, no matter how family-friendly the pitch. Margaret taught me to question motives, and that instinct saved me as I pushed Olivia's papers back across the table. But the fallout was just beginning. Ethan's hurt over my secret clashed with his anger at Olivia's betrayal. Our marriage teetered, and I knew I had to act fast to protect my legacy and us. What I did next wasn't just about saving my assets. It was about reclaiming my voice in a family that thrived on control. How did I stand my ground, and could Ethan and I rebuild trust? Let's dive into the steps I took to lock down my inheritance and face the storm that followed. Picture me, Sarah Mitchell, 30, standing in my San Francisco apartment, the echo of Olivia's heels fading as she left with her lawyer, those chilling trust documents still on my coffee table. My heart was racing, not just from her audacity, but from the hurt in Ethan's voice over FaceTime when he learned I'd hidden my $3 million inheritance. Margaret's legacy, her penthouse Monterey Villa and Oakland rental, was under siege, and my marriage was cracking under the weight of my secret. But in that moment, I channeled my grandmother's strength. I wasn't just going to protect my assets, I was going to reclaim my voice. What I did next wasn't just about saving my properties, it was about proving I could stand firm even when everything felt like it was falling apart. First, I called my lawyer, Susan Carter, who'd managed Margaret's estate. "We need to make my inheritance untouchable," I told her, voice steady despite my nerves. Susan explained that Margaret had placed the properties in a irrevocable trust with me as the sole beneficiary, but Olivia's move showed we needed more. We upgraded to an irrevocable trust, ensuring no one, not even a spouse, could access the assets without my consent. We added multi-factor authentication for any changes requiring in-person verification and a notarized signature. I also updated my will, clarifying the properties as premarital assets. According to LegalZoom, 70% of trusts protect inheritances from marital disputes. When structured this way, Margaret's foresight gave me a head start, but I had to fortify the walls. Taking action felt empowering, but facing Olivia was harder. The next day, she called, her tone syrupy. "Sarah, let's not make this difficult. The Harris Trust is best for everyone." I took a deep breath and said, "My grandmother's legacy stays in my trust. This isn't up for discussion." Her silence was icy, and I knew I'd drawn a line. But Ethan's reaction worried me more. He was quiet, his hurt palpable. "Why didn't you trust me?" he asked, eyes searching mine. I explained my past exes who exploited my finances and my fear of losing Margaret's gift to his family's control. He listened, but the tension lingered, our conversations clipped. Here's a real-life example to show why I acted fast. My friend Emily inherited a $150,000 stock portfolio, but delayed updating her trust. When her husband's business failed, creditors tried to seize her assets, claiming they were marital property. A year of legal battles drained her savings. Emily's delay cost her dearly. I wasn't going to make that mistake. Susan's swift work ensured my properties were locked down safe from Olivia's reach and any future claims. The small lesson here: legal protection is your first line of defense. Don't wait for a crisis to secure your assets. Set up a trust, update your will, and consult a lawyer you trust. Margaret taught me that independence means preparing for the worst, even when you hope for the best. Those documents on my table weren't just papers. They were a reminder to act decisively. But protecting my legacy came at a cost. Ethan's trust in me was shaken, and Olivia's influence over him was stronger than I'd realized. As we sat across from each other, barely speaking, I wondered if I'd saved my inheritance only to lose my marriage. Could we find a way back to each other? And what was driving Olivia's desperation to control my assets? The truth about her motives was about to surface, revealing a secret that would change everything. Let's dive into the storm that tested our love and the moment Ethan had to choose between his family and me. Picture a dim San Francisco evening, rain tapping the windows of our apartment where I, Sarah Mitchell, 30, sat across from Ethan, the man I loved. The air was heavy, not just with the storm outside, but with the weight of my secret, a $3 million real estate legacy from my grandmother Margaret that I'd hidden from him. Olivia's attempt to seize it with her lawyer had forced the truth into the open, and now Ethan's eyes held a mix of hurt and betrayal. "Why didn't you trust me, Sarah?" he asked, voice breaking. My choice to protect Margaret's penthouse Monterey villa and Oakland rental had saved my assets, but pushed our marriage to the edge. What happened next wasn't just about rebuilding trust, it was about Ethan finding the courage to break free from his family's control. Ethan's pain was raw. He felt blindsided, not just by my secret, but by Olivia's betrayal scheming behind his back while he was in Chicago. I explained my past exes who exploited my finances, my fear that the Harris family's obsession with their trust would swallow Margaret's legacy. "I wanted to tell you," I said, tears welling, "but I needed to know we were a team first." Ethan listened, but his silence spoke louder. For days, we moved like strangers, sleeping in separate rooms. A 2023 Pew study shows 45% of couples face trust issues over financial secrets. Our marriage was living proof. But I refused to let it end there. I suggested couples therapy, and to my relief, Ethan agreed. In our first session, Ethan opened up. Growing up, Mom controlled everything he said, voice low. She checked my bank account in college, decided which jobs I could take. I thought it was normal. He admitted fearing Olivia's disapproval, even as an adult. Therapy helped us see her control wasn't just about money, it was a pattern that stifled his independence. One night after a session, Ethan looked at me, eyes clear. "I don't want to be my dad bending to Mom's demands to keep the peace." That was his turning point. He decided to leave the Harris firm where Olivia's influence loomed and took a job at a rival tech consultancy. It was a bold move, trading security for freedom. Here's a real-life example to show the stakes. On a financial podcast, a couple, Mark and Lena, shared how Lena's secrecy about a $20,000 bonus sparked fights that nearly ended their marriage. Unlike us, they avoided therapy, letting resentment fester until they separated. Our choice to face the pain head-on saved us. Ethan's decision to leave the family business wasn't just about work, it was a stand against Olivia's grip, a step toward the partnership we both wanted. The small lesson here: trust in marriage thrives on open communication, not avoidance. Financial secrets, even well-intentioned, can erode love if you don't address them. Therapy gave us tools to rebuild, but it started with courage to face the truth. Margaret's wisdom, independence through choice guided me, and now it was guiding Ethan. But our fight wasn't over. As Ethan pulled away from Olivia, she doubled down her calls and visits, relentless. Then a shocking revelation about the Harris family's finances came to light, explaining her desperation to control my inheritance. Why was Olivia so determined to claim my $3 million? And how would we navigate the fallout when the truth about her motives hit us like a tidal wave? Let's dive into the secret that unraveled the Harris empire and the choice we made to save it on our terms. Imagine a tense evening in our San Francisco apartment, the city lights flickering through the rain-streaked windows. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 30, still reeling from the clash with my mother-in-law, Olivia, who tried to seize my $3 million inheritance from my grandmother, Margaret. Ethan and I were mending our marriage after my secret came to light, his decision to leave the Harris family business, a bold step toward independence. But Olivia's relentless pressure, her calls, her veiled threats, hinted at something deeper. Then, in a moment that felt like a thunderclap, We uncovered the truth: the Harris family was drowning in $800,000 of debt. Olivia's desperation to control my legacy wasn't about family unity, it was about survival. What we did next wasn't just about saving them, it was about rewriting our future. The revelation came during a heated dinner at Olivia's Marin County estate. Ethan confronted her about the lawyer and those trust documents. Her polished facade cracked. "The firm is in trouble," she admitted, voice trembling. "Robert's investments went south." She confessed that Robert, Ethan's father, had sunk millions into a risky AI startup that collapsed, leaving an $800,000 debt. The Harris Tech Consultancy, once a Bay Area staple, was on the brink of bankruptcy. My properties, Margaret's penthouse Monterey Villa and Oakland rental, were Olivia's plan to secure a loan to save it. According to a 2023 CNBC report, 40% of family businesses fail due to poor financial management, and the Harrises were a textbook case. Olivia saw my inheritance as a quick fix, not a legacy to respect. Ethan was stunned. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. Olivia's tears were rare raw. I was trying to hold everything together. Her vulnerability shifted something in us. We could have walked away, but Ethan and I chose to help on our terms. I offered to use the Monterey Villa, valued at $1 million, as collateral for a loan to stabilize the firm. But there were conditions. Robert had to enroll in a financial counseling program to address his reckless investing, and the company needed professional management, not family nepotism. Olivia balked, but with bankruptcy looming, she agreed. It was a lifeline, not a handover. Here's a real-life example to show the stakes. A friend, Carla, loaned her parents $50,000 to save their diner, no strings attached. They spent it on flashy renovations, not debts, and lost the business. Carla's generosity cost her savings and their relationship. Unlike her, we set boundaries. Our lawyer drafted ironclad agreements, ensuring my villa remained mine with clear repayment terms. We weren't bailing out the Harrises, we were giving them a chance to rebuild responsibly. The small lesson here: helping family financially is noble, but it needs clear boundaries. Without conditions and legal protections, you risk losing more than money, you risk trust. Margaret taught me that true support empowers, not enables. By setting terms, we honored her wisdom while offering the Harrises a path forward. But our choice sparked something unexpected. Olivia, humbled by our offer, did something I never saw coming, a gesture that hinted at change in her ironclad ways. What was it, and how did it reshape our family? The answer lies in the new life Ethan and I were building, one rooted in Margaret's legacy of independence and hope. Let's dive into how we turned this crisis into a foundation for something greater, and the dream we launched to honor my grandmother's name. Picture a golden San Francisco morning sunlight streaming through our apartment windows, where I, Sarah Mitchell, 30, sat with Ethan, our hands clasped over coffee mugs. We'd weathered a storm, Olivia's attempt to seize my $3 million inheritance from my grandmother Margaret, and the Harris family's $800,000 debt crisis. With my property safe and our marriage stronger through therapy, we were ready to build something new. I'd just been promoted to finance director at a tech startup. Ethan was thriving at his new job, and a pregnancy test confirmed our biggest joy: we were expecting a baby. But the heart of this chapter was the Margaret Foundation, a dream to honor my grandmother by empowering young women with financial knowledge. This wasn't just about preserving her legacy, it was about multiplying it. My promotion came after months of leading my startup's budgeting overhaul, boosting profits by 15%. It gave me confidence to expand Margaret's real estate empire. Using rental income from the penthouse Monterey Villa and Oakland apartment, $800,000 monthly, I bought a fixer-upper condo in Oakland for $400,000. Ethan and I spent weekends sanding floors, painting walls, turning it into a rental that added $2,000 to our income. According to a 2024 Pew Research study, 75% of American women lack basic financial literacy, a gap I saw firsthand. That inspired the Margaret Foundation, launched with $100,000 from my savings. It offers 100 annual scholarships for young women to attend financial literacy workshops covering budgeting, investing, and debt management. At our first event, I met Aisha, a 19-year-old barista who'd grown up in foster care. "This course showed me I can save for college," she said, eyes bright. Her story felt like Margaret's spirit living on. Here's a real-life example to show the impact. My cousin Maria never learned money management and racked up $20,000 in credit card debt by 25. She felt trapped working overtime to pay it off. After attending a free financial workshop, she built a budget, cleared her debt in 2 years, and started investing. Maria's transformation showed me why education matters more than handouts. the Margaret Foundation isn't about giving money, it's about giving tools. We partnered with local nonprofits to host classes teaching women like Aisha to navigate leases, avoid predatory loans, and plan for retirement. Each scholarship costs $1,000, but the confidence it builds is priceless. Then came the baby news. One evening, Ethan and I sat on our couch, a positive test in hand, laughing through happy tears. We started a trust for our child, mirroring Margaret's foresight to ensure their financial security. The foundation and our growing family felt like a full-circle moment, Margaret's lessons of independence now guiding the next generation. Ethan, once tethered to his family's control, was my partner in this vision, his new role at work sparking joy instead of stress. The small lesson here: your legacy isn't just what you own, it's the knowledge you share. Financial literacy can break cycles of struggle just as Margaret's wisdom lifted me. Start small, read a budgeting book, take a free course, or teach someone you love. That's how you build a future that lasts. But this journey wasn't complete without closure. Olivia's role in our story took an unexpected turn, one that tied our past struggles to a hopeful future. What did she do to make amends, and how did it shape the family we were becoming? Let's dive into the final chapter where we learn the true meaning of legacy and how you can protect yours with the lessons we fought so hard to earn. Imagine sitting on a weathered porch swing, the San Francisco skyline glowing in the distance, a baby's ultrasound photo tucked in your pocket. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 30, reflecting on a year that tested everything: my marriage to Ethan, my $3 million inheritance from my grandmother Margaret, and my strength to stand against my mother-in-law Olivia's schemes. From her lawyer's chilling visit to the Harris family's $800,000 debt crisis, we emerged stronger with a new baby on the way, and the Margaret Foundation empowering young women. But the real treasure, the lessons that reshaped our lives. As we close this chapter, I'm sharing 3 truths that can protect your legacy, plus a surprise from Olivia that changed how I see family. Let's wrap this up with wisdom you can use. First, protect your assets with legal tools. Margaret's trust saved my penthouse Monterey villa and Oakland rental from Olivia's grasp. A prenup or irrevocable trust isn't about distrust, it's about clarity. Second, set boundaries with family. Ethan and I learned to say no to Olivia's control, rebuilding our marriage through therapy. Third, share knowledge as your legacy. The Margaret Foundation's 100 scholarships teach young women financial literacy, echoing Margaret's belief. Money buys options, but knowledge buys freedom. According to a 2024 Pew study, 75% of American women lack financial education. Our foundation fights that gap, one workshop at a time. Here's a real-life example to bring it home. A YouTube commenter, Kelly SF, shared how she watched my last video and set up a trust for her $50,000 inheritance. Her in-laws pushed her to invest in their startup, but the trust kept her assets safe when it failed. Kelly's story mirrors mine. Legal protection and boundaries turned potential loss into empowerment. Without them, she'd have been another statistic like the 60% of women Forbes says lose assets in marriage due to poor planning. Your legacy, whether it's $50 or $3 million, deserves that same shield. Now the surprise. Months after our standoff, Olivia invited us to dinner. I braced for tension, but she handed me an envelope. Inside was a deed to a small Napa Valley cottage, her mother's left to her with instructions to pass it on. I was wrong, Olivia said, voice soft. You and Ethan showed me family isn't about control, it's about trust. It wasn't just a cottage. It was her apology, a step toward healing. She's in therapy now, and Robert's financial counseling has steadied the Harris firm. That cottage, like our foundation, symbolizes a new legacy, one of mutual respect. The small lesson here: act now to secure your future. Don't wait for a crisis to set up a trust. Talk finances with your partner or learn about money. Procrastination is the thief of independence. Margaret taught me that, and I'm passing it to you. Start with a budgeting app, a free course, or a tough conversation. Small steps today build a fortress for tomorrow. So here's my call to you. Have you ever faced pressure to give up what's yours? Maybe family, a partner, or even your own doubts pushed you to compromise. Drop your story in the comments. I read every one, and yours could inspire someone. If this journey resonated, hit that like button and subscribe. Next week, I'm sharing 5 legal tips to protect your assets before marriage. Don't miss it. Margaret's legacy taught me that true wealth isn't just property, it's the wisdom to protect it and the courage to share it. Thank you for joining me. Now go build your own legacy, one smart choice at a time.